Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I greet you all according to your time and locations. You will be watching this video. Yes, my dear viewers, I am back again with another update. So guys, I have a video here I would like we all to watch. But before then, if you're missing my channel for the very first time, you're highly welcome. Please kindly do well to like, share and subscribe. Leave your thought on the comment section. Let us know what you think about this video, and I will see you towards the end.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The United Action Front of Civil Society, otherwise known as the Organized Civil Society of Nigeria, at the end of the review meeting of its national coordinator team held earlier in the week, unequivocally decries the prevailing harrowing hardship currently being experienced by Nigerians in the wake of recent economic policies imposed on the country by the newly inaugurated administration of President Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. The organized civil society group says the unconscionable imposition of government policies without proper consultations and engagement with stakeholders and citizens, in spite of the foreseeable overriding negative effect of these policies on the Nigerian masses, must be revisited in order to alleviate the suffering of the masses. Joining us now is Professor Chris Nwokobia, convener, Country First Movement and representative of United Action Front of Civil Society. Good morning, Professor Nwokobia, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be on with you.
Well, good morning, Professor Nwokobia. Strategists, economists, the World Bank, others have told us that the policy reforms initiated and embarked upon by the Tinubu administration will appear to make sense because there's no other option. Harmonization of forex, fuel subsidy removal, but the organized civil society is kicking. And you've been quoted as having been part of that meeting by organized civil society. What are your recommendations? What are the options that you think is available to government?
Good morning, Dr. Ruben Abati. The pleasure is profoundly mine to be on with you. Let me say clearly first that all over the world, the Bretton Woods, the World Bank, the IMF recommendations have always been taken as a second choice. The first choice has always been national interest. Tragically, the third world, and indeed African countries, are unable to distance themselves from these programmatic. They almost always settle for what advice, if you like, what prognostication, if you like, what policy stipulation, if you like, that the World Bank and indeed the IMF throws at Africa and a few other countries. The first question I'll ask is, why is America always at daggers drawn with the World Bank and the IMF? Why is France almost always at daggers drawn with the IMF and the World Bank? Why is China and several other countries almost at daggers drawn with the World Bank and the IMF? They survive on the plethora of conflicts and policy somersaults, if you like, of several other countries. And in this case, Nigeria is their pot. This is where they want to feast. And I say clearly, Dr. Ruben, I was early enough to listen to the guests who were on before me, and they did talk about the issues about subsidy and the free flowing or floating, if you like, of the Naira. Let me say clearly, I'm not an economist. By training, I'm a lawyer. By vocation, I do PR consultancy and leadership training. But let me say clearly that as you and I talk, it's obvious that if you do not have an economy that understands, that addresses the fundamental issues of nationhood, if you dance through the contours or the confines of populism over policy articulation and formulation, if you try to impress those who want to run your economy for you, then you run into a dead end. And that's exactly what we have. Look at the value of the Naira as it is today. And you ask yourself, if you go, just a simple Google check, and ask what will happen if you free float, if you allow your Naira without ensuring that you pluck a few holes, without ensuring that there is production, without ensuring that there is export, what happens to your economy when you allow the Naira to fight, permit my choice of word, the dollar? What you have is devaluation, what you have is inflation, what you have is hunger, poverty, disease, despondency, and want. And that's what we have today. As you and I talk, Dr. Ruben, as you and I talk, Rufai, as we talk about our country, what is glaringly obvious, today is Salah. Go through the streets and see how much hunger, how much pain, how much melancholy, how much penury, how much want you have on our socio-political space. And then for those who partisan obscurantists, permit my choice of word, Dr. Ruben, for those who believe that everything must be seen from the prism of politics, they are absolutely unfair to our country. I listened to one guest on this show yesterday who was talking about how nice in 1 month, it's 29th of June today, how nice in 1 month the political articulation of the present regime has been. And I say, why are Nigerians smart by half? You know, it was one of the greatest philosophers who said, oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first will practice to deceive. The truth is that every administration in our historicity, particularly since 1999, have done these same things that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done. You change the CNCs, you appoint a new police IG, you take out the EFCC chairman, you do a few things. And it's what we're used to. So those who politic with it, those who attempt to delude with it, those who attempt to do politics with it are smart by half. I think that fundamentally what we have is that the pillars and the graphs of poverty and hunger, disease and despondency has deepened. As you and I talk, there are many more Nigerians who are going down the poverty mark. As you and I talk, the statistics and the figures reeled by the guests who were here before me are harrowing. As you and I talk, over 100 million Nigerians down the poverty mark. And so I think that the time has come for us to tell the present president and those who superintend over our country that this is not the time for populism. This is not the time to dance the music or the tune played by the IMF, the World Bank, and indeed the Bretton Woods associations, organizations. This is the time to put Nigeria first. And that's the position of the civil society. That's the position of the Action Committee, and that's the position of the Country First movement that I represent. The time has come to think about how we'll fix our country and make leadership responsible and responsive to our people.
All right, Professor Nwokobia. So despite your misgivings about the policies and its an obvious effect on Nigerians, it's already been done. It's been implemented currently. So we want to look forward. And in the World Bank reports that you talked about and in the conversation that we just had, there were a few recommendations made by the World Bank. And some economists share varying thoughts with regards to that. Number one is the conditional cash transfer. I'd like to get your take on that with regards to the immediate alleviation of the impact of the fuel subsidy removal. Do you think we should have the conditional cash transfers, and how should this be implemented? Professor Waleke talked about going through the local governments. Do you think that's something, well, not in conditional cash transfers, but to develop projects or to develop the areas and build infrastructure? What's your take on this? How can we move forward? How can we ensure that the hardest hit do not feel the impact of these policies?
Ayo, smart question, and let me say this with all sense of respect, that for 8 years, the Buhari administration told us about conditional cash transfers. Nobody has called anybody to book for not ensuring that that policy was effective, efficient, and effectual. For 8 years, we were told about, and you saw optics and pictures of people being given money in marketplaces and in public places. And you ask yourself, how effective has this been? I want to say with every sense of respect and decorum and decency and perhaps commitment to the cause for a new Nigeria, that those who preach that programmatic being unfair to the Nigerian people, with inflation on a double digit, how would 5,000, 10,000 affect our country? Would our roads decrepit, our facilities comatose, and things checkered? How will it affect our economy? How will it get the really poor out of poverty? And who has done the statistics? Who has found out those who are truly, truly poor and where they are? And then do you know, and let me surprise you, that if you were to look through the bank statistics, those who have bank accounts in our country are by far fewer. There are less than 30% of Nigerians who have. So many of us who have bank accounts have 4, 5, 6, and some 10 accounts. And so you ask yourself, the really poor, do they have bank accounts? Thank God for a few other money agencies that have emerged, like OPay, MoneyPoint, and several other. You ask yourself, beyond them, do the really, really poor have bank accounts? And who assesses them? Who reaches out to them? You know, the tragedy of our country is that there's so much of falsehood, so much of deceit, so much of corruption that the political operators, pardon my choice of words, political, you know, they come with all kinds of tricks and they tell you, oh, this is what will work, this is how it will work, we're given so much money to so and so and person. You know, the truth is that they really never give. And I want to remind you and take you back a few months ago when there was a policy that they said was supposed to take out about some hundreds of thousands or millions of Nigerians from poverty. And they said it had to, it was superintended by the Ministry of Labor. They told you it was supposed to be a policy that would run first for 3 months and another 6 months. And about 56 billion or 46 billion was marked for that policy. Where are those who received those funds? And nobody, you know, so I think that I think that the time has come for us to really begin to criticize and critique most of these policy statements and then ask our president, like I said, to stop the populism and look at the papers and look at the figures and look at how these things work. Let me give you a practical instance. The World Bank would say what it would say. The IMF would say its own. But have you asked yourself, the policy on removal of subsidy, and then you ask yourself, a few months ago, they told us about 65 million liters of fuel were consumed daily in Nigeria. And then just a few days ago, they said, oh, it has come down to 40 million. So the 25 million liters, how did it happen? What happened? Who are those who collected money on those subsidy monies on those liters? And where are we as a nation? And what is the policy of government to recover these funds? I think that unfortunately and unfairly, those who pretend this country have consistently impoverished the people and enriched the political operators. Unfortunately, albeit consistently, they have subsidized the lives of the rich and the noble rich and avoided making better the lives of the Nigerian people. And I want to say, very importantly, Dr. Ruben, very importantly, Ayo, that we're at that point in our historicity where we must tell those who pretend over this country that the office of a citizen of a Federal Republic of Nigeria is the #1 office, not the office of the president. The citizens come first. The president comes second. The Senate president, the vice president and Senate president come after them. You know, the time has come for us to put a primacy on how leadership addresses the challenge of the masses of our country. Save and except that is done, our search for the new republic, our search for responsible and responsive leadership, our search for a country that works will be like the wait for Godot.
Right. Well, let me ask you, beyond activism, let's focus on recommendations, options, and in two regards. One, Organized labor has asked for minimum wage to go up to 200,000 naira. It's part of the
200.
Yes, it's part of the demands they are negotiating.
So guys, thank you so much for watching. What do you think about this video? Please kindly drop your opinion down below. I'll see you in my next one. Bye for now.